Hello, and welcome to this session of the Climate Change Conference. My name is Brooke, and I'll be the host. I'd like to introduce our speakers. Victoria Serta and Natasha Akawenzi are from the Bagadawa Alliance. This alliance has been giving presentations about climate change and how it is affecting the Great Lakes, as well as the lives of fishing families and the Anishinaabe people around Lake Huron, as well as numerous other activities that you will hear about. Their presentation is called Winds of Change, Aki Guardians. First, we'll hear from Victoria Serta. Victoria is the treasurer of the Bagadawa Alliance. She is on the board of the Climate Reality Project Canada, and as a settler ally, believes in raising Indigenous voices on climate change. She lives in Saugeen Anishinaabeg in what is now known as Wyerton with her husband, and enjoys visits with her daughter and grandson who live at Nayashiniming. She has been giving climate change presentations since the 80s, and after her training with Al Gore, has given a version of his slideshow over 150 times. We will also hear today from Natasha Akawenzi. She is the manager of the Bagadawa Alliance. She lives on a small farm in Nayashiniming with her husband and 3 grown sons, who used to run an artisanal fishing business and processing plant, but due to climate change and sustainability concerns, closed their business and started an environmental organization. She's been giving climate change presentations around the Great Lakes for a few years, in particular about the effects on Lake Huron and fishing. She was recently trained as a climate leader by Al Gore in his first global online training. So welcome to you both, and we look forward to hearing all that you have to share with us today.
Wonderful. Miigwech, Ani Bajo, welcome everyone. It's nice to see so many familiar faces here, Mike and Catherine. And anyway, we're really excited to be here and be speaking with everyone today. And I see more friends that are coming online still. So we're going to be giving a presentation, and we're going to do our best to keep it within the time limit. Brooke, since you're moderating, if you could give us like 5 minutes before you'd like us to finish up, then that would be awesome. If you could just break in and go, woo, stop us, that would be great. But we've got a presentation about the winds of change. So I'm going to start sharing my screen for the slides. And Natasha and I will both be jointly presenting today with everybody. So let me just get the presentation up. There we go. Now, can everyone see that all right on the screen? Yep. Okay, so this is our presentation about the winds of change. And Aki means earth or land, and Nibi is water, or like Nibi is the water. So, and welcome, Ani Bajo. And I'm going to hand it over to Natasha to introduce herself.
So my name is Natasha Akawenzi. Some of you might remember me from the Owen Sound Farmers Market many, many years ago. Well, actually, it wasn't too long ago. But this is my husband and I, and once upon a time we used to be young. And this is my husband also fishing. He's a sustainable artisanal fisher from Nayashiniming. Myself, I'm living at Nayashiniming with our family, but I'm actually from Lac Seul First Nation, which is literally the end of the highway, way up north. Victoria?
Sorry.
Okay. So anyway, we ran a fishing business for 15 years, and then we started Bagadawa. But I'll get into it later on about how we started Bagadawa and why we started it. But it's an interesting story. I'll let Victoria introduce herself now.
So hello, everyone. We're going to be doing a lot of laughing today, just so you know. It's going to be a little different some of the other presentations that you've had. We kind of can't stop laughing, Natasha and I. So I'm an Indigenous ally. I've lived in Saugeen Anishinaabeg for most of my life. I was raised in Owen Sound. I remember my first community action was when I was 13. I organized a protest against the Temagami clear cutting, so the boreal forest up in northern Ontario, and I've been very active ever since. So I started presenting global warming in the 80s, And I've been an organic farmer, and my specialty is in democratic education. So I really enjoy the kind of work that I do with mainly volunteering around climate action. And I've been doing that for basically my whole life. But more recently, I've become a very strong Anishinaabe ally in the area, and I have been trying to raise Indigenous voices about the environment, climate change, and what's happening with the natural world. So that's my basis for being here. But I'm also on the on board of the Climate Reality Project Canada, Al Gore's organization, and on Saw Green for the environment, and of course with the Bogatawa Alliance as the treasurer. So today we're going to be, I'm just put this overview so those of you that like having a linear pathway forward, you kind of know where we're going. So we're talking about the Great Lakes, a bit of history, climate justice and action, and then we're going to go into what we're doing around innovating partnerships, working together, integrating traditional knowledge, fun, and then ending with what all of us can do. So the Bogatawa Alliance is something that we formed, and I'm going to let Natasha tell all of you about the story about the windsock.
So once upon a time, 2.5 years ago, in the middle of winter, a federal grant came down to do climate monitoring in communities. My husband and I at the time were fishing, and we wanted to get a windsock and a weather tower because the weather was inaccurate at the time. So we started looking at the grant and trying to figure it out. But I needed to be able to reach out to somebody that can talk about climate change and not just from a fisherman's point of view. So a friend of ours, Philly, gave me Victoria's contact information, and I reached out to her on a snowy December afternoon. And I can tell you right now, that's when our life has changed.
Dangerous. It's dangerous, people.
So pretty much we didn't get our windsock. We didn't get a weather station. But what we did get is a not-for-profit group that's led by 3 fishermen. We did get a scientist. We did get somebody who's really good in community engagement and can talk climate change. We did get a youth. We gathered some more people around us, and here we are today, 2.5 years later. So that was our humble beginnings. So going on to the next thing is about what Bogatawa means. And this was another late night call to my mother, because my birth mother's a fluent Anishinaabe speaker, and she comes from Lac Seul. She's living in Thunder Bay, but she comes from the end of the highway, 20 hours from here, drive. So Bogatawa means they set a net, and I think I kind of get my looks off of her.
Just a little bit.
So this is what we've done in the first 2.5 years. We have been busy, many late nights, seeing Dawn almost a couple of times, doing the crunch time of getting grants in, organizing events and what have you. So we've applied for over 20 plus grants in the first year, raised over 70 plus in the first year. Second year, another 70,000 so far. This year, we've already done 50,000. So in other words, we've applied for over $1 million. We've attended and hosted over 100 events and activities to date. Okay, I'm just tired just thinking about that. But anyway, this is what we're seeing as fishers, as sustainable and commercial fishers. This is what we're seeing from the fishermen say. We're seeing lack of whitefish. We're seeing a lot more windy days. It's hard to make a living for a fisherman if they're spending a lot of time on shore. Dangerous conditions. You worry about the fishers that go out on the water because they may not return with these high winds and these storms that blow in very quickly. We're also seeing a lack of youth interested in the fishing industry. which I'm not really surprised at, because who would want to be a fisherman if you can't actually go fishing? And other things that we're seeing a shortage in is welders and chefs and net seamers. Net seamers would be excellent if you have a youth that might be interested in learning how to seam a net. So this is some of the changes that the fish that the fishers are seeing. The whitefish numbers are declining. Lake trout numbers are increasing. There's less bycatch being caught, which is burbot, suckers, and gizzard shads. And pickerel walleyes numbers are increasing. The reason we're worried about that is walleye are considered a warm water fish. So, Mythbuster. I'm not too sure if this is a typical fisher, but it would be nice to think it was. You know, you might actually get some youth wanting to fish. Is this the kind of boat we use? I'm not too sure. I highly doubt it. So this is what a real fisher looks like. Still attractive, but a little dirtier, and not so many tattoos. This is we either fish with a tug or a punt. My husband uses a punt, but this is a picture of a tug that's all dressed up for Christmas. Did you want to do this one, Victoria, or do you want me to?
You go ahead.
Okay, so Lake Superior. Lake Superior, we start off at the north. That runs into Lake Huron and Lake Michigan. And of course, Georgian Bay, we're on that little strip of land that separates Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. And Lake Ontario, where it shares the shores of Toronto and a lot of the bigger cities. And Lake Erie, sadly, every time I think about Lake Erie, I think of the algae. You get this one.
Oh, I forgot. Yes. So our good friend, Dr. John Anderson, who many of you have seen referenced many times today, and was speaking earlier, put together some information from NOAA, from the charts, put together some charts from the boys. And so he charted the where things were going. So you'll see on the top, the ice cover is on a steady decline. In a presentation he gave for us last week, he said if the trend continues the way it is, that it would, his estimate is that in 2063 that we wouldn't have any ice cover anymore. In the water temperatures are going up, as you'll see on the bottom left, and the water levels are going up and down. So I think, if I remember correctly, what he was telling us a couple days ago is that we're just going to see more volatile water levels. We'll see it changing faster. So it's concerning to see this level of change that's going on in the lakes, and I think that it's good for us to listen to the Indigenous fishermen who have spent, like our board collectively has over 90 years experience on the water. And that's a lot of experience to be able to draw from, and observations, and for them to be able to see what's happening over time, and putting that together with the other knowledge is also really important. So I'm going to let Natasha talk a little bit more about what's going on the lakes with the wind speeds and the storms and that kind of thing.
Okay, so there's an issue with the ice. We're not getting so much these years. Last year, I don't know how many people noticed, but there was almost no ice at all last year. We had at least 1 foot to 2 feet of shoreline at all times along our shoreline, which was very different. And the previous year to that, we got a little tiny bit of ice right along the edge, but it melted in 24 hours and was gone in the spring. There's a lot more wave action. Our shoreline changes. It can change in 24 hours if it's a good southeast wind. Where we live, we're looking directly at Hay Island. So with the wave action, our shoreline is being remodeled, if you can say that. It can be done in 24 hours to 37 or 72 hours, that it looks completely different from the previous week. The wind speeds are picking up. We're now talking about putting up solar panels down at a trailer that we'll talk about later on in this discussion. But we're trying to figure out, how do you put up solar panels to deal with 90K winds? Also dealing with more storms, as we all remember maybe on Friday with the tornado warnings. As a fisher, you don't want to be on the water during that time, and you don't want your gear to be out on that water. But when I woke up and recorded the weather that morning, there was no tornado warning and there was no severe weather advisory that was up. So that's how quickly things are changing. So if you're a fisher, you know, you may have gone out and put your gear out, and you may have traveled out further onto the lakes to go fishing with no idea that this was coming up, and how quickly it can come up and how it can quickly change your life. Shorelines are being eaten away with the waves and the wind stirring things up, and things are quickly eroding. Ours isn't eroding, it's being piled up. We're getting dump load trucks of new rock being washed up on our shore. We now have a 5-foot wall of stone behind our boat, which is lovely. Also the decline in whitefish. When we were fishing once upon a time, not too long ago, we were catching about 150 to 200 pounds of whitefish. When we stopped fishing, we were catching 1 whitefish. So that's like a 6-pound whitefish. And we've seen that decline very, very quickly over the years. I'm not that old, so to see it in my lifetime, it's highly concerning. And invasive species. If anybody's ever seen a lamprey eel, they're not exactly the most friendly looking creatures or cuddly looking creatures. We're dealing with spiny gobies, we're dealing with phragmites, alewives, even smelts are considered invasive species. And also even just fish that are being stocked can be considered an invasive species. So there's a lot of challenges Georgian Bay is facing, but and also just the Great Lakes in a whole are facing, but hopefully we'll come up with some solutions.
So we wanted to also remind everyone that for most of the people that are on this call, we're in the Saukeng Anishinaabe territory. So that's the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people that were from here. And now there's basically, there are 2 bands that are around. So there's the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation and the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. So in this whole traditional territory right now is there's a land claim that's before the Ontario Supreme Court, and we'll probably be going to the Supreme Court of Canada talking about this, and also that they've asked for confirmation of the title to the lake bed as well for this area. So this, I think it's the first time that the courts have looked at this as with talking about the lake bed as being part of a title claim. And it's a piece of history that was just kind of happening last week. The closing arguments happened last week. And so it'll be something to watch over the next few years with where things go. But there are a number of treaties that were signed on this land with the Canadian government. But prior to that, there was an agreement with the Queen that this land would all be held for time immemorial, well, always held for the Anishinaabe people. And so it will be really interesting to see what happens with that land claim and how things come out of that. But it's just important to kind of remember that that this land is their land that they've shared with us. And it's really important for us as allies to keep that in mind when we're doing our work. Also, that the water around it is acknowledged through the court to be for the Indigenous rights to be able to fish in the area. And it's kind of a stark reminder of the Indigenous rights with what's happening in Nova Scotia. And there have been conflicts in this area in the past as well that we want to make sure that are not going to happen in the future. And so part of what we do with the Boggadawat Alliance is trying to do a lot more reconciliation and building allyship and trying to be able to work together and collaborate with people. So we're welcoming lots and lots of people and organizations to be able to partner with us, and at different levels of government and in the nonprofit sector and informal groups, and just in any way that we can, we'll work on these things with the capacity of what we're able to do. So back to Natasha again.
So climate justice. This is what I do every day. I've started over a year ago on October 5th. I go down to the shore. I offer some tobacco. I put a tobacco tie in a branch of a tree that's very close to the shore. And I'm going to ask, I want to thank the whitefish for being with us for many, many generations, and asking them to also accept our apology for harming Georgian Bay and the Great Lakes as a whole. And then I ask for also guidance in correcting it for future generations. The reason I do this is because I want to make sure that we come up with a plan, a really good solid plan, so that my great grandchildren can go and fish and catch a whitefish and enjoy what comes out of the water. We have a few ideas of how we could do this, but the biggest one is to also make sure that the whitefish and the Great Lakes and Georgian Bay are a priority on people's lists of things to look at. We need to look at climate change from the water's point of view, not just looking from the land out to the water, but we need to be on the water looking back at the land and how it's affecting the creatures that are under the surface that we depend on.
So with the Boggadawat Alliance, as you can probably guess, we do a huge amount of work with a lot of volunteering and a little bit of getting paid. So we do a lot of presentations, including before the pandemic. We used to travel to Toronto and around the region, talking to different groups. Natasha is a very well liked keynote speaker for different things, and sometimes I go along just to make her laugh. And when the pandemic started, we decided to take our show onto online, and so we did we've done a lot of webinars and also informal chats and presentations, just to try to keep people connected to each other and being able to talk to like-minded people about meaningful things. So we've done a lot of those regular, just keeping going online and giving an opportunity for people to be able to connect and talk. We're also doing a lot of citizen science work that we're just starting, and the response is like overwhelming, with over 50 shares of our page asking for people to help out with water testing. And Natasha and Isabel did a rain gauges workshop, and our Aki Guardians have been doing plant identification, and we want to do more animal identification in order to get that education out to people so that they start paying attention to being outside, paying attention to what they're seeing and noticing those changes, and also helping us to be able to gather data that we can use in order to just talk more generally about what's going on in the area. So we've got a lot going on around the citizen science and the water testing. But another thing that we've been doing quite a lot of and regularly are shoreline cleanups. So we go to different places throughout the traditional territory and do cleanups along the waterways. So we've been all the way down by Godrich. We've been all the way down by somewhere like Thornbury, down that way. I didn't go to that one, so I forget where it was. Anyway, we've been doing that in order to, and we have good conversations with people when we're out and talking about just protecting the water and the land and being good stewards and looking after it. And we think that that's an important role that our organization has in trying to get people to pay attention in a similar way that Charlene Winger Jones was talking about earlier. So, time for a joke. What kind of fish performs operations? Anybody ideas? A sturgeon. um, so back to the regular part of the presentation, we've got a lot of innovations in what we're doing that are more on the social enterprise side, but also just with more collaborations and things like that. So we recently did a grant and purchased a trailer so that we have it for two purposes. One is so that we can bring educational facilitators up to Nashingaming, where they can be able to provide support in either from education or providing services within the community. And it's right on the shoreline. It's a beautiful new or a relatively new trailer. And we're just in the process of getting it all hooked up to be able to be really usable and also rentable once it's open to the public again, to be able to come, so that people can come onto the reserve and be able to experience a bit more what life is really like for the Anishinaabe people living at Nashingaming in particular. We also have a grant in order to start an online store that will be able to list off the crafts and also the services that the community members in Saugeen and Nawash can offer to people that are coming to the area, so that they can have authentic experiences with real people and be able to understand better what's going on, but also to support the local economies in those communities by making it easy for people to be able to support them and purchase things from them. So it will make traditional crafts more available, like beading and ribbon skirts and all things like that. So these social enterprises are coming along, and we're developing those experiences that people can have where they can have a guide that could take them for a walk in the woods. We could have storytelling around the fire. And we have also been doing camps with people in post-secondary institutions, and those ones have been particularly exciting and very life-changing for people. We, in a partnership with York University and through a SHIRT grant that I'm sure quite a few of the professors that are here with us today are very familiar with, we're running a film school that's online for Anishinaabe youth in Saugeen and Nawash to be able to learn about how to make their own documentaries. And that one's really exciting because it's in collaboration with the Youth Climate Report. So they are going to be able to upload those documentaries, and United Nations officials and people involved will be able to watch them, and it can help to guide their policy making in the future. So we're pretty excited about what's going to come out of those. We have 7 youth that are participating in that right now. We also have 2 Aki Guardians that are hired, and actually this is their last week with us after a 2-month intensive full-time work. And they've been doing a lot of variety of learning. That if you go to our Facebook page, to the Bagawad Facebook page, you'll see all of the different things that they've been doing, including learning picking wild apples and making cider, or going out on for hikes, or whatever we can think of that will give them an experience and help them to understand more about what they might like to do in the future, especially to be guardians of the earth and the water. And just as an example of something that's different that we've done a pottery workshops where people were trained in how to be able to make pottery, and also how to be able to go and use clay from the land and process it in order to be able to make their own pottery. So we're working on self-sufficiency at the same time as just generalized education and a lot of training and opportunities for people from a lot of different angles. So we've got a huge amount of partnerships. I'm not going to talk about all of these. I've mentioned a few, but just for instance, the Community Foundation Group, I saw Stuart earlier, and I think he's going to be talking later. They've helped fund our documentary project where we were interviewing Indigenous elders and about fishing and climate change in the environment. So, and we, like the Investment Readiness Program gave us the money in collaboration with Senko at Georgian College for our trailer. And we've, done partnerships with multiple universities and post-secondary institutes in order to be able to bring more people up and help them to be able to learn, or we go down there and then we help them. One really unique partnership that Natasha had was she brought 11 chefs up from Toronto, and they did a free meal for the community. And it seemed like it was a huge amount of fun. I had to miss it because I was at the Free Prior Informed Consent Conference. But it looked like a great ball and a lot of fun with people at that. For the togetherness part of what this conference is about, I think that one of the things that we can do a lot more of is to organize joint events with other community groups and collaborate on joint communications. For instance, we can put out more press releases around things together, or producing pamphlets or booklets around things like naturalized shorelines or low impact development. We can help people to access the Anishinaabe knowledge and figure out how to be able to do that appropriately to be able to help guide things that are going on in the future. We're working with the Climate Action Grey Bruce group and the Grey Bruce Sustainability Network, who are regional groups that are trying to really bring people together and work more. I know there's lots of other people as well, but we're all just trying to support each other. And the more we can connect through things like Keybase, which is the app, and there's that place where I've been talking with Mike and many other people about climate action and sustainability. We can get online and be able to do more in order to be so connected. My friend Kathy Orlando in Sudbury has a phrase, "Let's be too connected to fail." Like for climate action, we really need to build our relations so that we are able to really be supportive and do the most we can together. So, time for another joke. What happened when the whitefish got famous? They became starfish. So we're going to move on to the integrating traditional knowledge part that Natasha is going to speak to now.
Integrating traditional knowledge. So how I see this, and it might be slightly different than some people, but to ask Indigenous people to join you at your table when we're talking about climate change, or when you're talking about environmental issues, to ensure those voices are heard. We've been here a long time, a few years. We've been here a few years, and we've gathered some information over time. And we're out on the water quite a bit, and we're out on the land quite a bit, and we are seeing changes. And sometimes all we have to do is be asked to join in, and we would, a lot of us would be happy to sit at the table and share that information with you, and to go together and make a positive change for our future generations. Because all of us would like to be able to leave this earth better than what we have found it. And we hope in 7 generations that the earth is still here. When I go down to the shore every day, I look out over the water, and I try to imagine somebody, a future relative of mine, sitting at that shoreline. And I'm wondering if they will actually see what I see. Will they be able to go swimming? Will they be able to eat that fish? Will there be fish? Will there be ducks down along the shoreline, the gulls? Or will it be totally different? Maybe it will be even better than what it is now. There's always hope. And I always have to think of Star Wars that way. You always hope for the best, but you always have like somebody like Darth Vader kind of breathing over your shoulder. But it would be nice to be able to to integrate some of the traditional knowledge that we have. That, you know, we have been on this land a long time, and it would be really good to put us into, to ask us to be in classrooms or at conferences or round tables when decisions are being made. Because we might have some history on that area that you may not know, or that you know, may want to know. And it would be good to involve our voices there, to share that knowledge.
Morris agrees. That's Natasha's cat in the background was speaking up very vocally there. You've definitely got to support her. I added a few slides in here that a couple elders from Saugeen helped me to put together for a water presentation, Shirley John and Ningwakwe George. And they were talking about the cultural and spiritual responsibility of Indigenous peoples. And I thought this group would probably find this useful. And you probably know a lot of these things, but they were talking about water, and caretaking of water being a spiritual responsibility to the communities. And there's an impact on other resources because water is life, and it's basically a force that's in Mother Earth that is really powerful and has a life of its own. And it's seen that way, that things are alive when they're outside. And it's a perspective that I personally see everything that way as well. And I think that it's important to consider that. We also, when we look at traditional ecological knowledge, it's something a lot of people talk about, and they'd like to be able to involve more in what they're doing, but it's something that takes a lot of diplomacy to do, because quite often elders, they don't necessarily have the kind of scientific wording to be able to talk in a Western science language as well as an Indigenous science kind of language. And elders are considered to be expert witnesses, and they carry a lot of knowledge that's being recognized more and more in the academic world, and also legally. That kind of knowledge is being more recognized. But sometimes there needs to be somebody that is walking in both worlds, or as Ningwakwe calls it, an interlocutor, somebody that's talking to this side and somebody that's talking to that side. And that's a role that the Bogdawan Alliance can do in order to be able to help bring people together with this and figure out a way for it to work. There's a lot of knowledge around climate change, how the water is fluctuating over time, all the seasonal changes, and the way they read the environment is really different. From what I had learned when I was growing up in Owen Sound, as being a non-Anishinaabe person. So I think it's really valuable for us to use the two-eyed seeing method, like Elder Marshall is talking about, who's Mi'kmaq from Nova Scotia, that we need to see that they're both ways of looking at things, both Indigenous knowledge and scientific knowledge are both very valuable, and we should look at them in parallel so that we are making sure that we're using the best information from both. So we also wanted to talk a little bit about having fun. As you can see from our presentation and kind of the things that we do our best to make things fun and have a lot of laughs. Aquaman is a very common theme. If you follow us on Facebook, you'll see Aquaman all over the place. You'll also see Aquaman on a post in the water, who's helping Natasha to be able to notice what the water levels are and how high the waves are. So she's got a measuring stick that's going to be going on there soon, or I don't know if it's already on there. But
yes.
Is it? Yeah. So on the day when Natasha was going out in her clothes, of course, to put this into the lake, it was pretty cold there. And her husband, Andrew, decided to go out, and you can see him jumping in and splashing in the top right there. And on the bottom left, he was laughing and laughing and laughing because it was very, very funny while Aquaman was sitting and watching from his post. We also try to integrate having fun things into our activities. So in the one on the bottom right, Charlene Winger-Jones, who did the opening, she does a lot of work with us with the Bogdawan Alliance as well. And the three of us were presenting and doing a 24 hours of reality event a few weeks ago, and we did a puzzle competition as part of it, and with our social distancing, staying quite apart from on the tables, and Natasha won, Char came in second, and I came in a very, very bad last, where I didn't even get to finish my puzzle. I blame it all on not having my glasses on for the longest time. So just so you know, next time I'm going to be on that one, and I might win. And added Aquaman in just for Natasha. So Natasha, do you want to talk about what can we all do?
For sure. What can we all do? Well, we can watch Aquaman. But for real, what we can all do is get outside, go outside, take a really good look at what's going on in the environment, appreciate the environment, take a moment of really seeing the environment for what it is. You know, what are you seeing? What kind of trees are there? What kind of bugs are going on? What kind of birds? You know, is there any life in that river? Is there anything going on underneath those rocks? You know, let your inner child out, you know, flip over those rocks, play with the worms, and check out what's going on under those boards. Does it look healthy? Do they look happy? So that's one thing that we can do that's really simple. Get your kids involved. You know, that's like the simplest thing to do, is to get people off computers and off the telephones and get their butts outside. And that's, you know, that's one of the things I do when we have groups come up and visit us for a few days. Phones are down, you know, rain boots come on, rain jackets go on, and outside we go. It doesn't matter the season, doesn't matter what's going on with the weather outside. We're all going to be tramping around in the water. We're going to be chasing goats. We're going to be chasing chickens. We're going to be very stinky. We're going to be very dirty. But we're going to love what's going on, and we're going to have plenty of memories made and a lot of fun doing it. We can also do things by also getting involved with local groups. And thank you. And, you know, seeing what they can do to help. You know, can you help with water testing? Can you help us do a shoreline cleanup? Do you want to organize a shoreline cleanup? Do you need help organizing a shoreline cleanup? It doesn't have to be a shoreline, you know, let's tackle a street. If you're a parking lot that you're seeing that a lot of cigarette butts are on the ground, or a lot of litters around, you know, why don't you gather up your neighbors and, you know, go tackle a street or a park, you know, where your children play. You know, let's leave it a little bit better than what it was yesterday. So all of these things we can do. We can start talking about climate change with our family and our friends. Start talking about for real, and how it's going to affect our great, you know, our grandchildren, and how it's going to affect us. I don't remember having so many tornado warnings in this area. And, you know, it's changing quite quickly. So we need to be a little bit more aware of these things. We also need to think about how climate change is going to affect our food sustainability. You know, droughts are happening more often, a lot more heavy downpours. I can remember my garden being washed away into a corner. We can also get outside and just do fun things outside. You know, go pick some wild apples, and what can we do with them? Go harvest things, and you know, check out what's going on outside. So there's a lot of things we can do, and I'm sure I'm missing 1,000 other things that you can do. But the biggest thing is to get outside and enjoy the environment.
So we're just wrapping up, and sorry, I can't see the chat on my screen, so I'm sorry. I'm just gonna be a little bit. So, where do whitefish sleep? Any ideas? No. I'm trying to get it to come down. Come on the lake bed. Yeah, in the riverbed too. That's great. So it's nice. We've got some smart people on the call that are good with jokes. Anyway, we're here and around, and Natasha and I are up until the wee hours in the morning a lot, and really happy to be able to work with people as much as we can, as much as we have the capacity for. And we love partnering in order to just build more capacity for the more and more climate action that we can get at all levels of government, in all groups, and in all different parts of society, the better. So we've got our Facebook and Twitter. Our Instagram isn't on here, but you'll be able to find us there as well. And we really want to be able to build those kinds of relationships that are going to help our children and grandchildren and future generations. So please be in touch with us if you would like to be able to work with us and help out with things. Yeah, we're really happy to be here. So thanks, Brooke, for moderating.
There is one quick question if we have time. I think we have a few minutes here. So let's get back into the chat. I wonder about the impact of fish. Until 2:10 is when the next session will start. Impact of fish being stocked on the commercial native fishery, example salmon, which are not native to the area. Wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Okay, so I'm assuming I'm going to be the one that answers this. Stocked fish. As a commercial fisher, I don't agree with it. There's not a nicer or more blunt way of saying that. It impacted our lives dramatically. It impacted our business dramatically. It was hard realizing years ago what was happening with the stocked fish and how it was impacting us. And having no say over it. So when I talk about stocked fish, I like to talk about, man as a species, how we always seem to think that we should be able to control a situation by introducing another species or another something to control another species. And then things go a little awry. And then you have to introduce another species to take care of that species you've already introduced. And it's never really worked out. I've thought for hours and many, many days, and I've had a lot of time late at night trying to figure out how to get something to work, and just kind of daydreaming in the back of my mind going, I just need one example of what we have done over many, many centuries by introducing a species to an ecosystem to control another species, and how well it's gone. And it's highly concerning, and that's how I see the stocked fish. It's put things out of balance, and some livelihoods were not thought of it all the way through. And it's impacted some people that weren't invited to be at that table. So when we make a decision, we need to have all those voices at that table of who you're going to impact. It doesn't matter where you do it in this world, because there's a lot of people that will be overlooked, and other species that will be overlooked.
A lot of people don't know that many of the species that are stocked in Lake Huron are invasive species. They're not native fish. They affect the natural ecosystem. So it's the ones that people like to fish that are anglers are not usually the native fish to here. So it's a real concern. But the MNR is looking at it, and we heard recently that they have thought about stocking lake trout next year. So we'll see if that comes through, but it would be, I think, a good step forward, especially with the Indigenous fisheries in the area. They would be really grateful to see if some balance can be restored to the ecosystems.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation today, and to Michael. It was very insightful, and I think people have a lot of information and hopefully new partnerships that will come away from this. So I think we have a few minutes now, and we'll be starting again at 2:15, 2:10. So if you're welcome to stay on or pop on to one of the others.